Good morning, everyone. This is Sapna Srivastava, editor Realty Plus magazine, and I welcome you all to Havells Presents Realty Plus Masterclass webinar. The topic for today is electrical safety dynamics in commercial buildings. And, in terms of commercial buildings, indeed, this is a very important topic, and rightly so. To present this discussion, we have partnered with Havells India Limited, which is India's leading fast-moving electrical goods company and a major power distribution equipment manufacturer with a strong global presence across many countries. They will be sharing their experience and expertise in this discussion, along with other eminent speakers who are experts in their own segments, and they will be giving their insights on this topic. But before we go on to the discussion and I introduce the set of eminent panelists, let me give a brief introduction of what Realty Plus is all about. Realty Plus is part of Exchange for Media Group and Business World Group, and we have been part of the real estate industry for more than 16 years now, covering all aspects of real estate, building, and construction sector. In our monthly magazine, which is the Realty Plus magazine, available both in print as well as digital edition. Apart from this monthly publication, we have a yearly coffee table book, which comes across on specific topics every year, such as luxury projects of the year, affordable housing projects of the year, building material brands of the year. In fact, our forthcoming book, which is soon to be released, is a very interesting product, which is the Realty Plus Super CXO. And it will celebrate the winning strategies of real estate CXOs from across the country. And in fact, the pictures that you're seeing on the screen are some of the eminent CXOs which are already part of this unique book. And we are really looking forward to seeing this book coming across. Another very interesting book that Realty Plus is launching is Realty Plus Tech Titans, which is a digibook with JLL as a knowledge partner. Here we will be enlisting tech solution providers from Fortune 500 to startups, as well as real estate companies which are pioneering technology in a big way in their organizations. So another very interesting product to look out from Realty Plus. Apart from these publications, the publishing services that we have, we are already also doing Realty Plus Conclave and Excellence Awards events across 6 cities of the country. And as you know, this is the time when everything is digital. We are doing these events on a unique virtual platform. And in fact, the first of this virtual series we just concluded for the Gujarat region. And the next upcoming Realty Plus Conclave and Excellence Awards on virtual platform is for the West region, which will be coming up next month. Another product to look out from the Realty Plus. And as I said, this is the time when everyone is going digital to stay connected with the industry stakeholders. Realty Plus launched the Realty Plus Digital Connect few months back. And under this umbrella, we have few digital products, such as the Masterclass webinar that we have today, where we have brought in experts together to talk about a pertinent topic of the industry. We are also coming up with video interviews, which is called the Realty Plus Real Talk series, where we do one-on-one interactions with industry experts and know their real facts and figures about the industry. Apart from this, as I said, our magazine is available as a digital edition also. We also have a e-newsletter which goes out to the entire database with the latest news of the sector and views and opinions of industry experts. We are also very strong on social media, whether it is Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or other platforms. And that is how we stay connected with our industry peers, with our readers, and also promote our products. So these were some of the products, a very brief introduction of what we are doing, what we are coming up with. And anyone who would like to know more about it may get in touch with Tripti Kedia, business head and publisher for Realty Plus. The contacts are right there. Coming back to the discussion of today, which, as I said, is on electrical safety dynamics in commercial buildings. Before we move on to the discussion where we have eminent speakers, I would first introduce our keynote speaker of the day. He's an eminent, a renowned MEP consultant. He's a ASHRAE and IGBC fellow and is also national chairman of the GEM Council for the Green Building Certification Program by ASSOCHAM, none other than Mr. Pankaj Dharkar. And in fact, in his 40 years of professional journey, he has been associated with more than 4,000 projects of various shapes, sizes, and applications. So, Mr. Pankaj Dharkar, I welcome you here and thank you for joining us. If you can share your views on the topic.
Thank you, Sapna, for that introduction. And I'm really thankful to Reality Plus team for inviting me for their first event in this series. And what can be a great thing to happen this morning when I'm sharing this webinar with some eminent personalities of the country, which includes Aneesh, who is going to moderate this session. My very dear friend, architect Amar, I remember I started working with him in early 90s. So thanks for connecting me to him after a long time. And of course, Ashish has been part of my journey from ISHRAE, ASHRAE, and several other societies, including FSAI. So it's always a pleasure to see him smiling and working with him, and specifically on such forums. Rahul Kumarji, the eminent architect, of course, it will be a delight to listen to him. And of course, and Shabir Kachwala, one of my important clients with whom we have been doing work on very prestigious projects of this country. So it is again a pleasure to be with him on the panel. And my thanks to Rohit for sponsoring this event and taking forward this important project of great to our build environment. And thanks for Havells. In fact, we share the same building in Ahmedabad. They are on my building. So Havells is always seen by us every day. Friends, recently we saw some very sad news in COVID time also, but if I see my Gujarat itself, 8 patients died in a fire incident in hospital, and reason was attributed to short circuit in ICU. Last year, we know a commercial tuition classes going off, 20 young students lost their life, and upon investigation, the cause was towards the short circuit. If you really browse through internet and see the news, you can see here, last year, Secretariat fire in Mumbai, root cause short circuit. We see 200 lives in AP every year getting lost. Look at Chandigarh, look at Vijayawada, every part of the country, you are again and again seeing these incidences which are happening due to short circuits. Many of them hospital, many commercial buildings, law buildings which were old and newly renovated. We are finding these cases going up. In fact, in all these cases, the catch of the word is short circuit. So short circuit, friends, occurs when a low resistance path not suited to carry electricity receives a high volume of electrical current, and that is what short circuits happens, and it can be caused due to damage of appliances, electrical shock, or it can even lead to a large fire, many of the cases. So electrical short circuits can cause fires in electrical appliances, electrical fittings, which rapidly spread through frames via connecting wires to the surrounding rooms and halls and combustible furniture, and it can spread very fast. In Indian scenario, data shows that majority of industrial disasters, commercial buildings and household fires is a result of electrical short circuit. And if we see Mumbai Fire Brigade data, the city has seen more than 15,000 fires in last 3 years, out of which 80%, that is 12,000, has been attributed to short circuit. Friends, Mumbai ranks second in the death caused by fire due to short circuit. And these short circuits are not act of God. They are man-made, caused mainly due to carelessness, negligence, flouting of rules, and such accidents could have been prevented and lives could have been saved in good practices were followed for years. Electrical fire constitutes significant percentage of total number of building fires every year, but underlying reasons quoted by most of the news reports, the cause is electrical short circuit. Actually, the factor which cause electrical fire can also be linked to poor power quality issues in the electrical network, which needs to be monitored and minimized on regular basis to avoid the fire incidences. If you go through data published by APQI and also International Copper Association, you will see some very frightening data related to electrical fire, electrical problems, poor power quality, increasing the risk of electrical fire, poor connections and earthing, harmonics, excessive thermal stresses, voltage surges. You see anything, and in fact, with the renewable fire risk is also going up. We have to understand that now with the EV cars, a lot of challenges are going to come. These are going to be new challenges because in commercial building, EV will be one of the big source of fire if it is not designed rightly by consultants and not coordinated right stages. You can imagine a car parking area with 1,000 cars, out of which if someone wants to go by green building norms, we were doing 5%, 10%. Currently, people are talking about 20% going for car charging. And these chargers are ranging from 10 kilowatt to 40 kilowatt for very high-end cars. And you can imagine the number of challenges it can pose if the parking right from day one is not rightly synchronized by architect and developers. It can lead to major disasters. Friends, old or damaged insulation may also allow neutral and hot wires to touch, which can cause short circuits. Computers and other equipment loads or to heating electrical network slowly damaging insulation over time. This can also cause overcurrent protection devices fail to operate many times, and then the high current leads to overheating, excessive insulation, causing ignition of the cable and much smaller overlays also. Faulty appliances and wiring, we all know, voltage surges, sometimes the wiring insulation is sensitive, electronic equipment fails because of frequent heating and subsequent cooling caused by voltage surges. Poor connection and earthing issues are the biggest and more common issues. Hazardous additional new loads in many of the commercial buildings, this becomes a challenge. Even the developer or architects would not have visualized, the designer would not have visualized. Many times diversities are taken to 30-40%, and suddenly you see that air conditioning is happening across, and this can be a big challenge. Non-proper planning of air conditioning, we see a lot of high-rise commercial coming up with VRV systems where they are stacked one above other, and this can increase the temperature of outdoor in a city like Mumbai. Many analyses have shown 36, 38 degree can go to 48, 50 degree, and this can lead to current which is drawn 50 to 60% more. I would like Ashish to emphasize on this. And this, if you imagine if the diversities goes wrong, this can heat up the cables and the fire can take place. Improper selection of solar PV components can also be a big cause. We are now getting into a sustainability era, a lot of green buildings getting designed, a lot of solar PV coming up. The cabling and everything, the power factors sometimes can also cause a serious issue there. So what can we do about it? So very quickly, I will run through. Avoid using multi-socket points, use circuit protection or breakers to meet power industry standards. Electrical wires should be proper working condition with no damages or no breakages. Faulty wires, loose connections, very old outlets may lead to short circuits. Overloading of appliances should be avoided. Faulty appliances or wiring appliances should be repaired from time to time. In case of non-linear loads, harmonics can rise to high level, causing severe out of balance conditions. So use 3+1 core cable in beneficial in such electrical systems. Harmonic filters will help to minimize electrical fire risks or reduce the electrical usage during storm, or it can help prevent short circuits and lessen the damage in cause of power surge. Very important for city like Mumbai. The earthing and lightning protection is extremely important. Routine electrical auditing is extremely important. Again, power quality studies must be done, and periodical measurement and monitoring of harmonic distortion is important. Currently, with a lot of energy strategic, a lot of VFDs are being used, which is also a cause of concern. Friends, the thermography has become a very excellent tool. You can see here on one of my sites when we saw there was a heating problem in panel. In 1 minute, we could analyze that the loose connection is giving to 159 degree. Moment it was tightened, the temperature came down to 38 degrees. So use of thermographic tools should be very much encouraged across the country on all kind of auditing. Even in a sophisticated, good interior spaces, you can scan the walls, scan the interior spaces, scan the cable trays, scan the connections. And friends, use of cable is extremely important. Earlier we used to use a lot of PVC cable. Over years we went to FRLS. Now we are talking about LSOH and HFFR, low smoke zone halogen cables, which produce very little smoke in terms of fire. So I think FRLS days are gone. We must go to LSOH, HFFR, which is halogen free flame retardant cables. Eco-friendly options are available. We can see earlier we were only using PVC armored cable. The days have come where fire survival cables, as per the usage, must be used, because this is something which is available, and all critical applications we must shift over to fire survival cable wherever possible. Friends, whether it is improper electrical system design, unskilled workmanship, poor maintenance, procurement of low-cost devices for power distribution, non-compliance to regulations, or ignorance standard, it is sure that giving priority to cost saving as compared to safety can cause high risk to lives and also property from electrical fires in every field. Friends, going back and very passionate subject of my life, on the safety and security, FSAI has come up with a FSAI Suraksha Index. This was launched in last September with a very clear vision to construct buildings in India safe, secured, smart, to prevent losing lives due to unfortunate incidents, prepare fire rating codes after major consideration of current industry scenario. So this is something which we are very proud. Ashish is part of this team who is with me in this journey, and this is going to bring about a huge change. This is the first global system, and we are very proud that this is something India is going to give to globe. So like a green building certification, you can now rate the buildings, and you can see here we have not only inducted fire but also security part of it, and the complete rating systems are available for fire and security. And this is now developed for healthcare, hospitality, education, high-rise, residential, commercial, and there are 3 levels here. So like in green buildings, we have silver, gold, and platinum. Here we have level 3, level 4, level 5, and the entire effort is to make it's a step towards Surakshit Bharat, to promote awareness of safe and secure premises, to enhance fire and life safety standards in the country, to identify the areas where actions are needed to improve Suraksha Index. And friends, this is something going to be a phenomenal thing for the country, and I will like all of you, particularly architects and developers and suppliers of various equipments who are listening this. This is a game-changing thing which can create awareness among the people. I'm also chairing this GEM certification, so under which we are developed this system, which is very, very simple, transferable, based on ECBC 2017 and NBC 2016. And you can see here, apart from sustainability of energy, water efficiency, green areas, indoor air quality, fresh air, we are also talking about fire and life safety. Gives tremendous importance to the monitoring of it. We have a central command center from where we are monitoring the energy consumption, the water consumption, the indoor air quality levels, and also fire and life safety signals are communicated to the local fire department. So friends, with that, once again, stay safe at home, take care of yourself, and once again, thanks to entire Realty Plus team, Sapna, Trupti, and entire back office for inviting me, and it will be indeed pleasure to be with you for these panel discussions. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mr. Dharkar. Thanks for sharing that wonderful presentation. And in fact, we have been getting comments that, they are really liking that presentation. Please do stay with us, because in the question answer session, we would like your presence to answer a few questions. So now, friends, we go on to the discussion of the day, and let me share our eminent speakers who are joining us for the discussion. I would our moderator of the day, let me introduce Mr. Aneesh Kadyan. He is the Executive Director, Property Management, CBRE South Asia Private Limited. And in fact, Aneesh oversees a portfolio of over 180 million square feet of commercial, retail, and residential assets. And he's also a member of ISHRE. He's a certified energy auditor and is also an IGBC accredited professional. Mr. Kadyan, thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you.
I now introduce our speakers in the alphabetical order. First of all, we have Mr. Amar Tendulkar. He is the Chief of Design and Sustainability at Mahindra Life Spaces Developers Limited. He oversees design, ideation, and implementation of residential projects, integrated business cities, and industrial clusters, and has over 24 years of professional experience in architecture and real estate development. And in fact, Amar has partnered and worked with best of the design and engineering professionals from across the world. Amar, thanks for being here, and we'll be looking forward to your inputs on the subject.
Good morning, everyone.
Our next speaker is Mr. Ashish Rakheja, Managing Partner, Aon Integrated Building Design Consultants. Mr. Rakheja is a seasoned consulting engineer and has designed over 2,000 projects, including hotels, airports, hospitals, retail, residential, and you name it, and he has done it. He specializes in high performance buildings and has been actively involved in leading design activities of electromechanical services for 10 net zero energy buildings and over 40 platinum rated green projects in India. So that's incredible, and we are happy to have him here with us today. Mr. Rakheja, welcome.
Thank you, Sapna. Thank you so much for introduction.
Our next speaker is architect Rahul Kumar, who will be joining us in some time, but I will share his introduction at this point of time. Architect Rahul Kumar, as we all know, he's the principal architect for Rajendra Kumar and Associates, which is well regarded as the leading architectural planning, landscape, and interior designing firms of India based in Delhi. And in fact, Rahul has carved his own niche in the architectural domain with projects, especially they are known for hospitality and commercial projects, which are known for their simplicity, sensibility, and inspirational designs. So we are looking forward to architect Rahul Kumar, who will be joining us in some time. Our next panelist, let me introduce Mr. Rohit Bansal. He's the Vice President, Havells India Limited, and he has been instrumental in developing customer-centric product portfolio, keeping in mind digital, user interface, cost effectiveness, and environment. In fact, that is the kind of products that we need, Rohit. So, we welcome you on this session, Rohit, and we look forward to your point of view as the manufacturers of the electrical systems. Our next speaker, the final speaker of the session, is a sustainability expert, Mr. Shabbir Kanchwala, Senior Vice President, K. Raheja Corp. He spearheads the sustainability initiatives of the company for real estate, hotels, and malls, and he has been initiating this sustainability for the projects for past 15 years now. And he is also responsible for functions which include purchase contracts, project coordination, and he's heading the Goa region projects. Mr. Kanchwala has more than 3 decades of experience in real estate, and he brings in this experience to this discussion. Mr. Kanchwala, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, sir.
So this was our eminent panel. Mr. Kadyan, I now hand it over to you to please go ahead with the conversation.
Thank you, Sapna, and a very, very big thank you to all the panelists for joining, and of course to all the participants who have come in. So this, I think Pankaj ji has set up very, very good starting to this session, and he's told about electrical safety, what are the repercussions. I'll just start with sharing my first experience with what can go wrong. I just joined my company CBRE. We are a real estate services firm, so we manage more than 200 buildings all across India. And this was about 14 years back. I just joined the Delhi office, and a week later, I got a call at around 11:30 at night, saying that there's a fire in a new building that we had just taken over to start managing the building services. The building was just about to get operational, so there were no tenants, thankfully. I rushed to Noida, middle of the night. That itself is scary at that point in time. And when I reached there, of course, thankfully the fire had been brought under control. But the fire started from one of the risers, one of the tap-off points, and it went from the ground floor to the top, which is about 20 floors, in a span of 5 to 7 minutes. Everything had burnt out in the lower floors. And when we did our RCA and everything, we found out that somebody was working on some project. They put a small tap off in one of the panels, and of course the overloading happened, and then the fire started. Lucky for us, no injuries, nobody got hurt. But yes, there was rework. The project got a bit delayed and everything. But that's how serious electrical faults can get. And of course, like everybody's heard from Pankaj ji, that 25 deaths every day due to electrocution. It's not very uncommon when you go to buildings, especially during the projects phase, when it's not professionally managed. You'll find electricians walking around in slippers and doing work, or you'll find the electrical team putting in naked wires into the socket. During operations and when the building is operational, basic things like lockout, tagout, not doing maintenance properly, thermography, such a simple tool, that itself is not used. So obviously safety gets impacted in buildings. So we have a very, very I would say, diverse panel with us, right from people who do the initial design. We have people who are running buildings, and not one or two buildings, but a large portfolio of buildings. So the experience of operations of electrical systems. And then of course, we have the manufacturer, Rohit and his team, who are actually creating and developing new products. So I'll quickly start the topic, and the way we structured it is try to cover all the aspects of this electrical safety paradigm. And I'll start with Amar. The starting point, of course, is what do you design and how do you design? And you have a lot of these codes which are there. You have something in the NBC, then you have your National Electrical Code. Many standards are there, codes are there. How do you think those are helping, or is there any changes that are needed in the way this electrical safety is regulated in the current industry?
Absolutely.
Anish, just a minute. Anish,
Yes.
Architect Rahul Kumar has also joined. So
Great.
after Amar, if you would like to take the design question to him.
Sure. Hi, Rahul. Good to have you on
Mr.
board.
Amar, please continue. Yeah.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
And thank you, Sapna, for connecting with me to my, some of the very old friends, very distinguished professionals across the industry over this panel. Very interesting question, Anish. And as we are speaking, even our, the pre-session discussions as well. I mean, there are two aspects of this. I mean, we are seeing world over the technology is getting advanced, but the way with the technology, the codes have to get advanced, or the, some of the good things about the technology and all those things we need to incorporate in the codes and take advantage of it. It's still yet not that kind of a progressively happening. Some of the examples which I'll give you in terms of the I mean, world over, you see there are different kind of standards, and it's as Mr. Dharkar has just presented that we are going for that fire suraksha or the Agni suraksha, standards. So that is a one very good initiative which I can see, which is coming up, and I feel that it should get kind of recognized by the government, and something of that sort, like an NBC, it should come across the industry. Having said that, I'll give you some examples that when we let's say when we do affordable housing, or when we do a very low cost kind of an housing, the pressure on the cutting of the cost is huge, and every aspect has been kind of tested to its threadbare kind of the specifications. I mean, you don't provide air conditioners, you don't provide electrical cooking ranges, or probably the electrical hot ovens or something like that. I mean, and over the years, people start kind of monetarily become more richer, and now they want to have the air conditioners in their house, they want to have the microwaves in their house, but the overall electrification, or the overall specifications of the electrical system which have been provided for that, they are not, the connected load is not calculated for that, the specifications of the wire, specifications of the cables is not up to that standard. These people, they don't understand it, they still connect all those things to that, and then that's where the kind of heating up, and that's where the kind of short circuit, or the fire hazards, they start happening. So somewhere we need to have control, that how much is the minimum kind of a standard for any kind of a housing, taking in consideration what will happen in next 5 years, or taking in consideration what will happen in next 10 years, that how do we take care of those things. Second aspect is, let's say when we do the high-rise building, which are, let's say, 250 meters, 300 meters plus, we are still kind of a scenario that we need to have, the transformers probably somewhere in the basements, or the DG sets. We need to keep it, with the maximum 999 liters, and then after that you need to have the, certain radii. So there are various measures still. I mean, space is the constraint, and then developer or anybody, he tries to design in much compromised way under this kind of norms which are of the yesteryears. I mean, you see multiple buildings overseas design. When there is a building which is going certain beyond height, 300 meters, 400 meters, the transformers are placed probably at the mid level of the buildings. Okay, and then from there, I mean, the HT has been taken there, and then from there the distribution happens. It distributes the load much evenly than having it at the one end, the transformer, and then taking the cables. I mean, it saves from the electrical losses, it saves from the overall distribution system of the electricity. So I'm just giving this couple of examples that all these things we need to have kind of take in consideration, make our codes more advanced, and the consultants like we have got Ashish is there, we have got Pankaj is there. What happens is that our designers community also need to be educated about this best of the practices in the world, so they start understanding what is the importance of those things, and then the overall design is kind of prepared. Many times I have seen when you do the building, I mean, because I'm talking particularly about the Mumbai. Now the electrical shafts are also taken in the FSI, fire shafts are also taken in the FSI. When everything has been taken in the FSI, there is so much of the pressure on the designers, from the business perspective or from the developer's perspective, to reduce the sizes of the shafts, or to take it out of the building, or whatever way. So what happens is, and the market is such that, the designers also succumb to that pressure, and then all those things, the safety standards ultimately get compromised. I mean, where the shaft is required, let's say, 2 meter by 2 meter area, I mean, it has been accommodated in the 1 meter by 1 meter area, and ultimately then you see that there is a kind of compromise overall in terms of giving the kind of a good serviceability, giving the kind of a good ventilation to the shaft, which is very important from the fire safety perspective. So I think it is very important that what matters the most has to be kind of a given due diligence. From that perspective, I think these norms which Mr. Dharkar has presented, there we should specify what are the kind of minimum things, and how those things matter in terms of when we do the rating. Yeah.
Thanks, Amar.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amar. And I think that this is what is the need of the hour, because the technology is changing so fast. I think what Pankaj mentioned about electrical charging infrastructure, today's newspaper had an article that already the Delhi government is looking at creating a lot of infrastructure around that. But do we have the codes ready for that? We obviously cannot use the old codes. So I think that there is a need for an urgent overhaul of the codes, and I think the FSAI attempt is also one in that direction. So thanks for your inputs. Ashish, coming to the next phase, which is design, and I think Amar brought this point up that sometimes designers have to kind of weigh multiple factors. So, from a design point of view, what would be your inputs? What do you generally see in design from an electrical safety point of view?
Sure. Thank you, Aneesh, and namaskar, everyone. Wonderful to be on the panel sharing dais with such eminent personalities. So I think it's a great question, Aneesh, and my immediate answer would be that as a design community, also as the Indian construction industry itself is currently exposed to a lot of good codes and standards which are being followed worldwide. If you look at our own Indian standards also, they've been continuously being upgraded. And as far as the availability of products is concerned, we get world-class products, even from company Havells and all. They're all now doing wonderful job here in terms of making these things available in India. The issue is not about the codes and standards not known to the practitioners and also to the industry experts. It's about how we follow them. If you look at the standards, we can start right from the beginning itself. When you're putting your transformers, there are clear guidelines on how far the transformer should be located in the building. If you're using an oil-filled transformer, how far should you put it away from the building? Look at the generators. Look at the bulk oil storage tank, how you should be putting them. The fire compartments, we speak about it. How should the substation be compartmentalized? How should the generator room be compartmentalized? How should the electrical shafts, their sealing on the floor should be done? In terms of the fire doors being used. In terms of planning, all norms are there. If you look at the switchgear, again, there's a wide variety available to us. And if a designer is really doing the job, there are discrimination studies to be done. There are fault level studies to be done. You can look at and correctly select the switchgear. If you get into the redundancy part, again, that's something that the designer should be looking at. If you are a 24/7 operation, obviously it needs maintenance. And for a proper maintenance regime, let's say the installation like data centers or installation like hospitals, especially since the hospital has been a flavor in terms of the fire safety issues arising out of the electrical infrastructure, I think that's where the redundancy plays a very key role, because if there is a patient on the life support system, one doesn't have the time for taking it offline. So what do you do in that case? So if you do a proper redundancy, there's obviously a proper maintenance that takes place. If you look at the type of cables available, we spoke about in the morning also, Mr. Dharkar mentioned that, from wires, from HFFR to FRLS, even in the conduits that we got, multiple choices available to the designers. You go to the cables, fire survival cables are in. Worldwide, people use the copper fire survival cables. Here in our country, we made that jugaad also to make it cost effective. We've got aluminum fire survival cables available to us, and our courts have started accepting it. Go to the protection in terms of down to the human beings. Earth leakage circuit breakers and all are very evolved in our industry today. It's another story. I think we can speak about it as we go along on how they are actually holding, what's happening there. That's another part of the story. We can cover that later. But this is where the designer has the tool, user has the tools and the materials available for using them. Over to you, Aneesh.
Thanks, Ashish, and I'm sure Rohit is just eager to get on and talk about from the manufacturer side, but I'll just hold on to you, Rohit. Rahul, again, you're also an architect and you do a lot of design. So from an architect's point of view, electrical safety, where does it come in the overall design, and how do you look at it? Because, you're involved, right? It's just not that you give the designs and then you move off. You're involved right at the end of the building. So how do you look at electrical safety when you're doing the design? Just keeping in line with the design aspect as of now.
Hi,
Rahul,
are you able to see me now?
Rahul, if you could just put the camera a bit up, we're not able to see your
Sure.
face fully.
Are
Yes,
you able to see me now? Yeah.
yes, Rahul, we can see you
So
now.
sorry, there was some link error which didn't allow me to participate earlier.
We can see you. Yeah, please.
But I had the fortune of listening to all of you briefly. As an architect, the real challenge that we face is to kind of ensure that in an emergency, if something happens to a public building, one is still able to evacuate the people in the shortest time. One can always do a post-mortem and say what was the reason for the fire. And of course, thanks to good technology by companies, good electrical companies and the best engineers, these days it's a pleasure to see electrical plant rooms designed and built really well. But once a fire happens or something goes wrong, the smoke just goes out from n number of ways. And as an architect, we are always very conscious that when people start to react to an emergency, then no matter how much planning you do, people will run in all directions and you want to evacuate the people soon as possible. So from a planning perspective, what we try and do is make sure that if it's a large site, your electrical infrastructure and other plant room equipment is kind of separated from the main buildings where, let's say, you may have 2,000 people coming in or more. So shopping malls, IT parks, we try and make sure if the site is big, that infrastructure is planned separately. Now, when you don't have a big site, obviously these services find themselves into the basement. And that's also the reason because everything above ground becomes FAR and nobody wants to leave that space as usable space. So within the basement, we try and zone it in an area where they don't come under the building or the building core. So even if, God forbid, something happens, there's no chance of smoke bellowing out into the vertical risers and affecting the safety of the people who are in using that building. Post that, when it comes to within the building, if the core of the building is so planned that we try our level best that never should the electrical rooms and other places where a fire can happen or overheating can happen comes in the way of a user escaping and running from any spot in that building. So very often this is very challenging because the site is small or there are other expectations of the design. But we try our level best that when you're running, you never come ever in the route of a space which could actually catch fire or smoke could come up. Zoning of buildings is a subject that we lay a lot of stress on. And while zoning often gets related to fire and sprinklers, I think it's very important that it's done so that in case there are any fires or accidents because of smoke, you're able to contain people in different zones and people are able to evacuate. Fortunately, the new codes have a lot more clarity on what should be done. But unfortunately, for us as architects, it's very difficult when you reason out with clients and their design teams, because very often one would say the fire officer is accepting this. We don't need to create that stringent barrier like you are interpreting in the code. So I think that will really help us architects if rules on zoning and safety are made so crystal clear that there is no interpretation of an design architect doing it differently, a fire officer looking at differently, and a project manager seeing it differently. So Aneesh, in short, I think those are some of the challenges that we face and we'd like to address.
I think good. And what I heard from the organizers was that they're going to be taking some discussions from this panel into the magazine. It'll go in as an article, and I'm sure that will gain some more wider audience. And hopefully, these views will get passed on to the people who matter. But just staying on this point about the design. So what we discussed is from the designer's point of view. But Shabir, your organization runs a large portfolio across multiple cities. So when you are, looking at setting up a new building, what are some of the key areas that you look at from electrical safety point of view? That would be good for the audience to just get an idea on.
Yeah, good morning. So as developers, we have the task of constructing, these kind of electrical safety-wise commercial buildings. And we average around 2 crores square feet of construction every year. So in addition to fire safety, electrical safety, dynamics plays a very large role in my companies while doing the design. So what we have done is we have a standard base building specification, which is a highly technical document which covers all the aspects of building design of MEP, which includes electrical design as well as the safety part. So this particular document has been vetted for it has gone through levels of vetting from fire safety experts. We've got this vetted from the Mumbai Fire Brigade, and we've independently got this vetted from other people who are experts. So that's the Bible for us in terms of how we can do that. Of course, in addition to that, we have our electrical design consultants who also play a role in terms of how this works. We also have a new construction technology team which scouts for electrical materials across the globe. So whether we want to use zero halogen fire retard smoke wires, or what we are using now is FRLS, which is the fire retard low smoke. So these keep on getting added to our commercial buildings. And since we are in the business of constructing IT large special economic zones across the west and south of the country, and our principals are from Europe and US who lease our buildings. So whether it's a multi-tenanted building or a single-tenanted building, we have the bandwidth of the fact that we have got our own facility management company called Matrix, which actually looks at maintaining these buildings. So right from the design as well as maintenance, we have a control. Obviously, all of us need to comply with the Indian electricity rules, the National Electricity Code, BIS, ECBC. And since all our projects, whether it's a mall, Innorbit Mall, or the JW Marriott at Sahar as a hospitality business and our other hotels in our country, or our special economic zones, or our residential buildings, which Ashish and the other gentleman has been involved in, we do play a lot of emphasis on guidelines for energy efficiency. Thank you.
Great, and I go with you that the standards of electrical safety, especially in the larger IT parks, has definitely risen, and that a lot is to do with, of course, the development and the developers. But of course, the customers are also asking for higher specs. I know when we work with a lot of corporate customers, when they go and do a assessment of a building, they go into a lot of depth to see whether it is safe, and electrical safety is a big part of their due diligence exercise as well. So I think that's a kind of a ecosystem which is created. And we will take this question later up in terms of new buildings. Yes, we're doing good stuff, but what about older buildings? We'll come to that. But I think all this will happen only when we have the right products in the market. And I think that's where I would like Rohit to come in. Havells, of course, is one of our, the largest manufacturers here in India. They're doing a lot of innovative stuff. So Rohit, what's your perspective, and what is Havells doing in terms of enhancing electrical safety of their products?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Anish. The electrical safety really comes to DNA. Being a homegrown company, what we have learned over the decades about the overall working environment. So I think Pankaj really highlighted that. He also reinforced that the environment where most of the electrical installations are, whether it is a voltage or your harmonics or your high temperature, or even your any kind of a harsh environment. Now, at Havells, we learned that over the years, and we continue to take that learning forward in all our products we are designing. And frankly speaking, it is not just about meeting those standards. In fact, we are really stepping towards exceeding those standards. Because, for example, the temperature typically say 40 degrees centigrade. Look at the real condition, it's around 45, even higher than that, right? Now, we continue to strive for a product which can really work in this environment. In this journey, recently what we did at Havells, we actually, went ahead with the technology collaboration with Hyundai Electric, and through that, we are offering the entire gamut of low voltage, which right from circuit breaker, MCCBs, control gear, even the entire power quality system. And if you look at the entire portfolio, it's not LV side or switchgear side levels. I'm sure we all know about it. We are getting the wide spectrum, whether it is the wires or cables and even the home appliances. Specific to the LV switchgear side, the entire portfolio is very well placed in the digital. Why and how it's important. The user side, it's very important, not just monitoring that piece, also equally important to understand, what is happening. In case of any, potential risk, any potential, thing which is alarming, the user will get some sort of alert or like. I think it is the design thinking plays a very, very important role in order to give that product works in the environment.
Thanks, Rahul. And I think that's the need of the hour as well, because you might have a lot of ideas about electrical safety, but if you don't have the right products, you're not going to really achieve what you want. And Rahul, just quickly, I know that you may have to leave, but as an architect, are you able to get the right products in the market, and are you getting, and are developers seeking the right products? Because there will be a cost to this, I'm sure. So what's your thought on that aspect?
Well, let me say all developers today are extremely conscious about safety, and I have not come across even one instance where developers and their teams are compromising on specifications for electrical equipment. Yes, they may cut a facade, they may cut a finish, an interior or a material, but I think all developer teams are today realize that without a very good infrastructure, buildings could look as good as they are, but it's something which doesn't go a long way. And what you'll end up in retrofitting, the cost of retrofitting them is so much higher and inconvenient that at the end of the day, their customers and tenants suffer. So I think there is a great amount of progress there. In terms of products, yes, we have a lot available now and is getting better and better. We just hope that we are able to make more and more in India and less reliant on other companies. I mean, in our field of architecture and interior design, it is so limiting if a few products have to come from overseas, because ordering them at the right time, and in projects it's always a struggle. Things get delayed in ordering and you end up not getting them. So I think we must have a lot more of these built to the specifications here in India.
I think that's where maybe Havells and other companies are now, I think, getting into the game, and we are seeing a lot of products coming from there as well. So, while like you mentioned, and it's great to hear, and I'm seeing it as well when we're managing buildings, that developers are not compromising on electrical specifications. But like I said, we manage a large number of buildings. Every year we add a number of buildings into our portfolio for management, and when we go and take over, in some cases everything is good, but a lot of cases we see the maintenance is not as well as it should be in general. But electrical systems, because they're not front facing like the chillers or the DGs or something like that, there isn't enough focus maybe sometimes. So we have two large developers with us. So maybe we could just hear from both Shabir and Amar. What are some areas that you look at in terms of electrical maintenance and to keep the systems the way they're designed, and of course healthy and safe? So maybe Amar, start with you.
Yeah, hi. So from the electrical safety perspective, and particularly about the customer education, what happens is after the handover of the building, we do the kind of do's and don'ts for the customers. Those kind of booklets or those kind of lessons that we take up with our customers. We have got our initiative, which is called Green Army, which talks about talks about sustainable practices, which talk about good maintenance practices, which talks about the nuances of what we have done, good things in the building, and educates the customer, and ensure throughout the life cycle of the building, the customers know how to maintain those equipments, appliances, and all those things in the building, and that way maintain the healthy life, throughout the life cycle of the building, and gives a good experience for the customer. We are the first developers who have got the 100% green portfolio across all our projects, carbon positive, world city, 3,000 acres which we have got, and a lot of electrical. The energy consumption perspective efforts have been taken over there when we go for the carbon positive initiatives. So having said that, it's important when you do the green building, customers also know that what are the kind of good appliances, good equipments that you have put, which ultimately maintaining those, it's ultimately going to save on their operating cost or their energy consumption. So we educate customers towards that and ensure that the proper maintenance has been carried out throughout the life cycle of the building. So that is one thing that we do. Having said that, but some of the things which I have not exactly, I'm saying with Mahindra, but at many places which I have seen, while the developer provides the very good quality specs, there are no joints in the wirings and all those kind of things, which are the basics. But when the customer does the retrofittings or customer goes into the interiors of its apartment, he wants to change, the points, he wants to change the air conditioning locations, he wants to change the kitchen, and he wants to do, put the modern gadgets. And the customer, he may not engage the qualified kind of a fully qualified or trained kind of a contractors. And that's where, these instances happen that you have the joints in the wire, or you put the wire which is of the lesser gauge or the lesser thickness, or you don't put the conduits to the right quality and all those things. And then they get heated up. So when I look at the electrical safety, I take it into the two parts. One is the fire, and second is the person getting shocked.
Electrocution.
So and generally with the kids, in the houses, and sometimes they put, somebody puts some kind of a nail into the, the sockets. So those are the very important things when it comes to the residential segment, particularly on the electrical safety. So there it's important to have the proper ELCB integrated into the circuit. So all those things, what we try to do as the responsible developer, we try to tell to these customers that, okay, when you do these interiors or when you do this, changing in the fit outs and all those things, what are the kind of nuances, what are the kind of points that you need to take care, which is very important, I think.
Thanks, Amar. And we saw about 2-3 years back a very, very sad video about one child getting electrocuted at an electrical pole in one of the buildings here in NCR. So it is real and it is dangerous. But Shabir, from a commercial building point of view, and I like the point about educating the customers. So what all are the initiatives that you take as a developer to ensure that electrical safety is maintained?
So what we have is, since we have our own facility management team, we have a SP which we have developed and we hand over to our customers, and how we need to maintain and manage, all the equipment, including electrical safety. Having said that, what my facility management team also does very regularly and rigorously. Now, as per the Indian electricity rules, once a year there is a extensive audit carried out for all the electrical equipments, which could include everything from cables to conduits to electrical panels, earthing. And then a compliance report is made. And then this compliance report is followed up and then implemented on site. So in my company, facility management directly reports into the directors, and the directors spend a considerable amount of time on facility management, which includes obviously fire and electrical safety. And we don't really have a budget for any kind of compliances, whether it is electrical safety compliance or fire safety compliance, and any kind of customer requirements in fire and safety also don't have a budget, and and they get complied. Further, on a quarterly basis, we are also doing thermal screening and inspection of the panel. So this is regularly carried out on a quarterly basis across my commercial buildings, and this also helps in measuring the temperature and the other parameters which are the causes of fire in the building. We also track our assets in the building, namely the electrical panels, and this is all done digitally even before COVID was there. So we have an elaborate document management system which is online and which can be assessed by my electrical engineer who designs and my electrical guy from the matrix team. And once the life of the electrical panels and the electrical ends, it triggers off, the document management system triggers off an alert to them that 6 months or 3 months before, including the procurement team, that this needs to get replaced because the warranties are over, and we get the new one reinstalled as per the standard electrical design.
Great. I think so. Technology, you're using technology to quite an extent, as well as focus on compliance to the law. Great to hear, and I'm sure the occupants of your buildings would be feeling much safer out there. I think, like I mentioned earlier, we were just going to touch this topic briefly, and I'd like Vivek to come on this. New buildings, we do a lot of great work. We have good designers and we have good products as well. But you see Aeroplace, it's got its own challenges in terms of accessibility, but the electrical systems there are worrying. So Vivek, could you share some light in terms of how can older buildings enhance their electrical safety?
Yeah, I think it's a very important point. And if we see, most of the fire which happens, it happens in older buildings.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is, over a period of time, when users in their premises, start, adding more appliances, the load gets higher and higher. And probably at some point in time, when the old infrastructure of, protection equipment or wires, or the last point where the electricity is being used, socket points where the higher loads are there are leakages which happen. And, because of that, there are possibilities of short circuits which happen. So this, I think, makes it mandated, for the audit to be done for all older buildings. Today, I don't think there is, a mandate by the distribution companies, or even from, I think, even private property operators or facility management to have a regular audit of the electrical installations. So probably, a mandated audit could be something which can bring about such things. You took the example of Aeroplace. So there are, multiple such, complexes, old buildings spread across the country. And every now and then we hear, that the fire incident has taken place because of, some short circuit or the other. So it has to be an upgradation of the existing switchgear infrastructure, an audit there. If some switchgear needs to be upgraded to the latest standards, it could be a check of wires, whether the health of the wires are all right or not, whether the sizes used are adequate for the load which is connected at that point in time. It could be health of all the connections and joints where possible leakages and short circuits can take place. And why not in the last point, even all the sockets and plugs which are there for higher loads, whether those are healthy or not. I think the maximum fire take place in those areas. So I would say that it has to be a awareness of the consumer. It has to be also a mandate from the distribution companies. So we are in touch with in the northern side, in, let's say, city of Delhi, NCR. We have tied up with BACS and Tata Power both. There has been an MOU signed for creating consumer awareness, even for training of all the electricians and foremen. So that's the bit we are doing from our side, and we hope that this better consumer awareness, at least to start with these cities, will have lesser incidents of fire. We're also talking to, other electricity distribution companies in cities like Chennai, cities like Bhubaneswar, and hope to, cover more and more cities and do our bit from Havells side.
Thanks, Vivek, and great to know that you're proactively looking at this aspect of electrical safety, which I think is the need of the hour. And then you rightly brought out the point of audits. We manage a lot of buildings, and sometimes you see that there's a bit of a hesitancy in doing basic maintenance. I was very impressed, Shabir, you mentioned that you do a quarterly thermography of your buildings. A lot of places you're not even able to do it once a year. And it doesn't cost that much these days. The costs have come down, and yet the awareness is not there, I think, and we'll all have to work together to increase this. There's one aspect which touches all areas, and maybe Ashish, because you're heavily involved in the project execution stage as well, that there's a good design and everything, but on the ground when it's happening, I know there are challenges, but what are the challenges you from a MEP, you're a consultant, you have this nice design that you made, but what are the challenges you find on the ground? I don't think it's as good as what you designed, the issues there, so why don't you just share with us and what can be done about it as well?
Sure. So Anish, the challenges on the ground actually start from the design board itself. What the code tells us, what the ideal situation is, and what a real life situation is, always a gap. If you remember right in the beginning, I brought out that our codes and standards are very clear in terms of compartmentation, fire isolation, distance from the building in case you're using transformers, and the type of wires to use. But at the end of the day, there are compromises that need to be made due to commercial considerations, due to space considerations, and that's where the challenge starts. Going down at the site itself, I think it's already been brought out by many panelists. The installation, what is being done, again, the equipment is world class. What you'll find in rest of the developed countries, what is being sold is what is available here in India. So there's nothing wrong with the equipment. You got a great design which has come from a designer. Now it comes down to physical installation of it. Start by seeing how we treat our equipment when it arrives at site. And those of us who have been at site would know how the main equipment which comes gets thrown around. By the time you install it, the equipment is already looking old. God forbid what's happened inside it, but it's already looking old. All the protections that we talk about in ideal scenario, for which we have done a factory test, factory acceptance test, comes to site, lying in the dust, not only for days, for months, is lying there because the site is delayed for XYZ reason. There is water on the floor. There it is. Your panel is the contactors and the all those protection devices that you put in. I don't know how they're going to behave. When the electricians are pulling the wires through the conduits, what is being done? They are pulling it as if like their life depends on that. The insulation gets peeled off. We know there's a good practice that you should be earthing your junction boxes. Who does that? You should put in rubber grommets. Who does that? The bypasses start from a design table, and it just keeps going on and on, going down the line. So the biggest challenge is, of course, the training, the test, acceptance test that should be carried out. We are always in a hurry to finish up our projects because each project is getting delayed beyond what we like to see normally, and everyone is out. Today, the culture is not there for who's testing, by the way. Is a consultant involved in the ground at the end of the testing? No. Is the project manager doing it? No. Is the contractor going to do it? No. Does the developer have the infrastructure to test? No. Who's testing? So the whole system has become now and is being installed by the untrained installers who have got no training whatsoever, and they have just learned it because their brother was doing it or their friend in the village was doing it, and they just picked it up from there. So the whole systems get skewed in a manner that we are sitting on time bombs in many of our projects, and a new project, things are working fine. But as you go along, if the installation is not done correctly, there's bound to be a challenges which starts happening. And then finally it goes down to the operation practices also, because simple thing like what you mentioned, thermography. Why at the time of handing over a thermography cannot be done to check if all contacts are in place? But how many projects have we seen that happening? How many we see that in actual life happening? So this is how it goes on. And I do want to mention one more thing, Aneesh, since we are coming to the end also. There are also the pressures right at the beginning itself on the design. Now, let me take the example of the residential project itself. We are talking of Maiwan structures and all those fast techniques. There we are putting the okay, and the developer has to sell the unit at 1,800 rupees a square foot, 1,500 rupees a square foot, 2,000 rupees a square foot, whatever that number is. That number is going to come at a certain things being compromised. The cost doesn't come down on its own. The land cost and all is on one side, but the project cost at the end of the day comes down to the compromises, and that compromise is typically size of the wire you're using, number of power points you're providing, and in the real life scenario, are you actually going to require only that many? So the user is going to come in at the end of the day and start adding more number of power points, or start putting more equipments connected to the same power point by using multi-plugs. And what happens to the infrastructure at that point? So I think there is a bigger issue out there, Aneesh, and it's a very timely topic that we are discussing.
Ashish, I can feel your pain.
Yes.
And your passion on this subject as well. And I think we are getting better at it. But you rightly pointed out that it's a mix of design as well as on-ground implementation that are the issues. And I'll just come to the last point because we're kind of just end of the hour. But I'd like to hear from maybe Rohit from the manufacturer side and maybe Amar or Shabir in terms of the what is the industry doing about training of the people on the ground. I know we have people who have ITIs. They come, they can't even make an SLD. Like Ashish said, somebody's working with somebody and then they become electricians. So any thoughts in terms of, okay, first, not thoughts, what's happening in the industry, and any thoughts in terms of how we can enhance this? Rohit, maybe starting with you.
Excellent question. I think as ecosystem, we should look at right from, I think, design, we already, second piece of installation or integration. Third piece is about, I think that maintenance is a very, very important. That's what we are doing. We are engaged, with multi-level activity. We are engaged in the program. We are going to train almost 50,000 technicians or electricians. In addition to that, we are engaged with multiple IITs in terms of establishing the right. Also, we are engaged with the skill development program and continuously enhancing, the basic electricians. In addition to training people or the installers on the products, on the switchgear side, I think it's a continuous journey. And as Ashish, just briefed and explained about the installed capacities, I think it is something with all stakeholders has to really take the ownership. I would say there is no shortcut. I think maintenance is something where I think everyone should be full ownership and ensure that it's being done at the right way.
Well, thanks. Shabir, I believe you have a good, robust program in terms of how to enhance the skill levels of your technical team. Would you like to share something on that?
So yeah, so we've got controls at 3 levels. One is obviously we go to the best consultants in India to do the design, including the brand specifications, the make, which is suggested, and we also buy products from around the world and India in terms of ensuring that whether it's the cables or whether it's the wires or whether it is the panels and thirdly, we work only with the best-in-class electrical contractors in India. So we do not shortlist any for that matter any contractor in any, whether even if it's interior wiring in residential or whether it is the low end or the high end electrical wiring. We go with the best, And we have a control of brand, make, technical specs. We have SPs in place. Then payment of contractors' bills get checked even by the facility management guy before handover. So there are two levels of checking. One is the electrical project engineer, and we have a billing engineer, electrical billing engineer, and then it has to be finally signed off by the matrix facility management team. So whether it is any snags to be corrected, no retention is released to the electrical contractor unless the facility management guys signs off. So these levels of controls are there, right from consultants, contractors, brand, make, material. And as far as training of the electrician or the foreman, uh, the electrical engineers on site who supervise they need to maintain records of the concerned person from the electrical contractor who would do a small sample before he is put on board, and cleared. So most of these go away because I agree, like Havells is training electrical engineers. L&T has a facility of training electricians and masons and carpenters. So if we have the right budget for this, we need to do that. If we try to shortcut the budgets, then obviously the contractor would end up doing his bit.
Great. Thanks.
Please, can I add something?
Please. Yes, Pankaj, go ahead, please.
Just wanted to cover up 2-3 important points which started by Amar in terms of mid-level permissions of transformer on high-rise, sir. There is a good news in Bombay. They have started doing it, provided the bus duct which is carrying the shaft is 4-hour rating. So we have couple of projects which is going with that particular design. So that's a good news, sir.
Yeah, that's really a good news.
Affordable housing.
The norm was there; they were not still allowing.
Recently, sir, got the permission. So that's what I said. It is a good beginning. On affordable housing, you raised very important issue. We have created vertical slums in Mumbai, including if you see architects and even professional consultants, people feel affordable housing is something where they should do work free of cost. Means starting from fees to the work which is being done. Means it is a very serious issue. The aspirations of people living in those one-bedroom houses are also going up, and you were planning systems with 1 kilowatt or 1.5 kilowatt being given to those affordable housing. You imagine an oven or an air conditioner, how much power it takes. You were designing with 40% diversity. So I am seeing a very big threat coming up in city of Mumbai with affordable housing going to 40 floors and 42 floors in height. And this is something very, very serious. Our next generations are going to see this problem. And this needs to be addressed. To me, the biggest issue in the country today is the distribution, the non-cooperation between the distribution company which gives power. They are very, very thorough till the power is terminated till the transformer. A urban development authority with or a municipal corporation and the fire team which gives permission, there is no synchronization further to their respective roles are done. I think a time has come when there has to be a synergy, there has to be a discussion, particularly for large projects. Otherwise, we are going to go towards very big crisis. And this is something very, very serious. You can really taste this in your large projects that this is a lack of coordination between all these three agencies. And coupled with that, our own engineering team. So all have to really work together if we want to really bring down the electrical problems in the system. To me, the cabling side, again, there is a big awareness, unawareness. We all know that PVC and FRLS cables are gone days technologies. Currently, very good technology wires are available, and I think it is our job as consultant, architects, developers to ensure that we have right type of cables available. A very high quality cable in any project will not cost us 1 to 1.5% of the total project cost, which can make it absolutely fantastic, sir. You will be fire safe, and smoke is the biggest cause of fire deaths in all historical, all fire incidences you see. So this is something where all of us have to work together. And if the consumption of this grade of cables will go, the cost will also come down. So I think this is the area, and I was very glad to know that in KEYNOTE there is no budget on budget limit on the fire and life safety. So it is a very delight to us to know that, and this is what should happen. The safety has no cost, and this has to be, this message needs to be percolated, and electrical safeties are of extremely importance, which have been far neglected, and that awareness, as Rohit said, has to come. And this is what FSAI, the Suraksha Index, like the Green Building Certification, has brought to the nation in terms of sustainability and energy. The FSAI Index is going to bring, and that is where I will need your support, Amar, for your group, and from Shabir for his group. Let it be the first projects of Mumbai.
So ours is the, Pankaj, ours is the engineering-driven group. I mean, highest standards of the safety. I mean, from where we are coming as the genes. So it's the highest. And I want to ask one very, different question. I mean, you all are very distinguished. I mean, Pankaj, you are there, Ashish. I mean, and we have got Rohit also there. So I want to ask a little different question to all of you. I mean, most of these electrical hazards, they start happening from the overheating or the overburning of the cables, and most of those, from there the fire catches. Or, somebody gets the shock out of it or something like that. Now, I was reading in the, past few months, there is an electrical transmission happening in a wireless way through using air as the medium. Okay. What do you think the future of it, and would it, help us to save from all these hazards?
Amar,
who wants to take it? Ashish?
Very, I would say, futuristic question. And only thing is, just to all the panelists, we are actually running out of time, and we thought we'll take one or two questions. But maybe it's a good, I think, setting a tone for another maybe a session. But Ashish, would you like to take this quickly? If you have some input.
I think that's a great thought, Amar, and it can only come from architect, because you're very creative there. So you're right. I think the way we are moving on, we are charging our phones also wirelessly now. So going forward, definitely with the low voltage coming into our life, lower voltage coming into the life, and the systems also going towards more electronic space, we'll start seeing that. Now, whether the electrical transmission at 220 volts is going to happen wirelessly, I think that may not be required, because once you go to low voltage equipment, then that's where you start picking up these advantages. So I see the shift there, and to some extent your issues what you're proposing will start getting addressed, Amar. So that's my response to that.
Okay. And Rohit, from a manufacturer side, maybe something that Havells is looking at in this space?
Ashish, really well. I think on the electronic side, it is happening. The way this wireless we have seen on mobile connectivity, probably will see the same, acceleration over the years, especially on the electronics piece.
Okay. And Amar, I'll just add there. Sorry, I think the bigger change which will start happening is the artificial intelligence, the self-learning of the systems, because so far the automation has stayed in the fringes as far as the electrical system is concerned. It has moved a great deal into rest of the systems, but on electrical we have stayed on the fringes. So as we bring that,
so there are a lot of things which are happening towards the power generation as well. I mean, I have not touched that.
That's correct. That's correct.
You take your car into the sunlight, charge it, and connect it to your home, and then car works as a battery, and you light up your home. So there are a lot of things which are happening like that.
And when that moves into the mainstream in terms of our building designs, and you have artificial intelligence which is taking care of self-learning, look, things are about to go wrong. The BIM is getting into that 60, 70 mode. I think those are the pluses that you're seeing, the bright sparks you're seeing going forward. There'll be better maintenance regime. There'll be better monitoring which will start happening. We'll start getting alarms timely. That's where our hope lies there, Amar.
I think the biggest investment in the world currently is happening on how does the energy get stored. In the automotive sectors, we have seen growth of EV, how it has happened. And the days have come when you will soon see these storage systems coming to the buildings. And that is going to see a lot of transformation. Probably our generation itself will see that the generators were some ancient stuff, So that is what will happen when this technology will transform to the buildings, and then probably, as rightly Ashish said, from electronics to a lot of low voltage developments of equipment, and using this stored energy through could be solar and many renewables would be a future which my generation is going to see. I'm confident, sir.
No, I think, Pankaj, this is already there. There's a US company that we are talking to, which already has a product which can, I would say, through storage of energy, substitute a lot of your generation. But I think this is a topic that we can discuss at much, much greater length. But it's a very, very important topic. You all shared some very interesting insights. We have noted down some of the points, and this will go into the publication as well. But there can never be enough that we can do on safety. We all know we are all building professionals. We are responsible for the lives of the people in those buildings. So this is a good step. And I just like to kind of end the session by thanking everybody, starting from Pankaj ji, for a wonderful keynote. There are a lot of requests from the questions and answers for the presentation. So maybe you can help share that. But thank you for setting the tone. Ashish, Rahul, Amar, Shabir for the wonderful insights. And of course, Rohit and Vivek from Havells to share a manufacturer's perspective. And of course, also for sponsoring the event. The backend team, Sapna, you've always been great at organizing these things. Thanks for that.
In fact, we have a lot of questions, Aneesh, which probably, let me just share these questions with you all, and I'll keep it open to all the entire panel, whoever would like to take it.
Sapna, do we have time? Because, I know some of the panelists may have to leave. My thought was that we have the questions and we have the registrations as well. Maybe we can respond to them later on if that is okay with you.
Yes, we will not be taking all questions. So I'm just taking few, important ones here. Someone has asked how important it is to have automatic network gas suppression systems in electric panels, and how to select the type of electric panel. If anyone would like to give a quick and crisp answer on that.
Okay, I've been overruled by the organizers, so we'll extend the time a bit.
Yes, we do have that leverage to extend the time. Anish, I have a question for you also.
Yeah, but maybe this one Ashish could answer. Would you like to answer that?
I think from a fire safety perspective, now the automatic gas suppression system for the electrical panel is part of the recommendation in the National Building Code. Now you're seeing more and more installations of it. And I can tell you that I've actually seen it save a factory in just a recent past when the system, and they installed the system just around a month before that because the electrical inspector asked them, and there was a short circuit in the panel. The panel caught fire, the system did work, it did extinguish, and it happened in the middle of the night. So you can imagine, so it's actually right, it's happened, it's right there. So in question of how you select the panel, I think there are many considerations which go into it. First of all, starting with the redundancy, looking at the fault level. The fault level is the most important thing that gets missed out by the designers and by the users. At the end of the day, you must look at the fault level of the switchgear that you are using, the system that is experiencing. You should look at the protection devices which are there. Do carry out the discrimination studies, because when you are selecting your switchgear, the discrimination must be looked at, and that's the right way to go around it. And at the end of the day, proper maintenance, shrouding, maintenance, these are the important considerations of a panel design.
Great. I would like to add that even fire trace, which is now means the tubal, which can go to the ST switchgear, is a very economic way of separation at the spot, and it is being also recommended by NBC in new code. So I will strongly urge that all designers and all end users should encourage on electrical side. It is very cost effective. Earlier used to protect the entire room. Now it can go to the panel or compartment level. So all HT switchgears and all major panels should, one can go, it is not a big cost at all. No.
Absolutely. And one thing more, Aneesh, I think there is a question on that on harmonics. Harmonics have to be looked at now because they do cause overheating, and it has to be taken into consideration. Again, the filters are available. As I said, the availability of devices, switchgear is now fantastic in India. One must know how to use it and where to use it. And
Yes,
that's what
awareness, power quality audits, they should be part of your maintenance plan. It's not, but that should be. I agree with you.
Right.
Fantastic. In fact, we had run a poll while the discussion was on to get the sense of the viewers and how technically they are aware about electrical system, and we asked them to prevent residual current circuit breaker to trip. To avoid that, what should be the incoming electricity current should be equal to, or are they aware of it should be equal to the outgoing. And yes, 60% of the viewers said yes. So we had a very aware audience with us today. And in fact, another question that someone has asked is about FS cables. Is the aluminum FS cable okay, or FS copper cables are okay?
Now, Vivek, would you like to maybe answer that?
The best person for that, but because because of the cost factor, I think even aluminum also should be okay. But I think Ashish can give his final recommendation, because copper definitely is much more expensive. So we have that solution in India, but I mean Ashish could give his final recommendation.
I think, Vivek, you said it right. The international codes from where it has been taken, the whole concept of the fire survival cable has been taken. Internationally, they use copper cables. It's only in our country that we are more prone towards the use of aluminum cable due to cost consideration. So yes, where the code it comes from, the copper cables are mentioned. But going forward, use of copper cables in larger conductor sizes, it becomes prohibitively expensive for the projects. I remember doing it for one of the projects here in Delhi. It costed something like about a couple of crores of rupees, and it got dropped out. Now, rather than dropping out, there is now a via product which is available, which is aluminum fire survival cables, which are made here in India, available in India, and they have been accepted by the Electrical Inspectorate and the fire officers in the Indian context. So as long as the construction is right, they have been tested. I don't see any reason why they cannot be used. And we have been using aluminum cables in our system for many, many years now. So there's nothing wrong with it as long as they carry the proper certificates. That's my personal view towards it.
That's quite informative. In fact, like architect Rahul Kumar said that in his experience, no developer, tries to save on the cost in terms of safety and electrical safety. So we asked our viewers also, do they feel that commercial building operators follow proper safety guidelines in terms of certifications, checks, etc. And yes, 64%, the majority says yes, some of them do. Not most of them, but some of them, yes, they do follow all the guidelines. Another question, interesting, like you spoke about harmonizing, is best practices to avoid harmonics and overheating and electrical fires when designing a system. What could that be? Mr.
I already mentioned that, Sapna, earlier. I said harmonics are
been covered.
Yeah, you have already covered it.
And I did said that using filters is the right way to go. We are now IT-driven infrastructure. The whole buildings today, whether it's a house or an office, they're all IT-driven. There is a harmonic generation which takes place. It's a reality now in the system. And there are filters that are available. One must look at that consideration.
Interesting. And how are OSHA standards for fire safety? There's a question here.
Best answered by Aneesh himself.
I think, OSHA is more for occupational health and safety. There are guides and codes that are there specifically for electrical safety, and that's what somebody should refer to. And that's what is going to, and that's what is actually referred to. Nobody refers to. There's no separate OSHA standard for electrical fire safety that I see.
Okay. And what's the difference between, what are the aspects that should be, considered in electric design audit, which are different from energy audit?
Energy audit, the two different things altogether. Energy audit focuses on the energy consumption side of it. electrical design audit is generally done at the beginning, or maybe during, if there's a change in the use of the building, or there is some power issues in the building, then you do electrical design. Is your design adequate enough? Is it safe enough? So I think there are two different, I would say, activities altogether. Maybe some overlaps here and there, but they're two different activities altogether.
Okay, fantastic. In fact, we have a lot of questions, but we will definitely will not be able to take it, but we will pass it on. As Aneesh said, I'll be passing it on to all our speakers. In fact, our last poll question for our audience was that our Indian manufactured electrical products are at par with global standards. And yes, 50% of them said yes, they are at par with what is available globally. So that's a good news, which means they have confidence on Indian manufactured goods. So on that positive note, I think we have had a very good session, and I would like to invite Mr. Vivek Yadav. He's there already with us, to please share the gratitude with our speakers for their very informative inputs that they have shared with us. Mr. Vivek Yadav is the Senior Vice President for Domestic Switchgear, EWA and Automation with Havells India Limited. And I would request him to give the thank you notes to conclude the session.
Sapna, I'm looking at the panelist that Realty Plus organized for this session. I was very excited to be part of this discussion and the whole event. And from Havells side, I really appreciate for all of you for taking time out for spending over an hour for this discussion. And I'm sure for all the audience, it must have been very informative. Hearing from the industry specialists and eminent speakers like Mr. Dharkar, Ashish Rakheja, Rahul, and also from the developer side, Mr. Shabir, Mr. Amar, from bringing insights on the implementation side of it. So very good, I think, discussion happened, and a lot of points which came out. Even I would say some frustrations, from the designer side. How the implementation and design, how there are gaps which come up. From Havells side, we are quite well equipped to help support all the developers and even the designers in terms of selection of switchgear. Now we have the wide portfolio available. Even from wires side, we are one of the leading manufacturers in the country. And whatever Mr. Dharkar mentioned, the latest wire standards are available in Havells portfolio, and we would be very happy to work with all of you in in providing safe wires for the buildings. Okay, thank you so much, and really appreciate for this wonderful discussion that happened. And I'm personally very happy with the outcome, with certain nuances that came out, and I'm sure the entire audience also would be. Thank you, sir.
Definitely, Mr. Yadav. And in fact, special thanks to architect Rahul Kumar, who's here in spite of the personal difficulties that he is going through. He still was able to make it to this discussion. So our special gratitude to architect Rahul Kumar for being here with us. And let me thank Mr. Ashish Rakheja, Mr. Pankaj Dharkar for setting the tone and, adding some very unique points to the discussion. Aneesh was so well conducting this entire session. Rohit adding your own perspectives and experience for our viewers. Mr. Shabir, thanks once again. You have always been a fantastic participant in all our seminars. And Amar, you are as good as you are always. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And we look forward to having you again for another of our seminars. Thank you so much.
Be safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Namaskar. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, Aneesh. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Amarji. Thank you, Sapna. Trupti.
Thank you. Thank you.